Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, with the latest trend being SUVs and trucks, what do you see being the next trend? Diehard sedan fans here. Yeah, well, I think in the past I've kind of mentioned, I've seen some studies or opinion pieces that have suggested that sedans could make a return for a couple of reasons. One, they have better aerodynamics for, EVs, which could make sense down the road if, aero efficiency is king. And also just the fact that, you see the growing trend of who's buying SUVs and trucks. It's increasingly becoming an older and older demographic. Now there's a lot of young people as well that like them. And I'm not saying that an SUV or a truck is an old person vehicle, but if, younger generations say, oh, well, my grandparents have an SUV, my grandparents have a truck. I think trucks are a little more resilient, but I think with the SUVs and especially the car-based crossover stuff, where it's not a rugged vibe, it's just like, I don't want to bend over into a car, so I have this nice high crossover, so I don't have to, ache my creaky joints. Like if it's that kind of a crossover, I think that's where you're going to see the potential for those to someday be uncool. And sporty low slung vehicles will always be more youthful because you have to be youthful to climb into them and climb out of them and all that. And I think the unpracticality could kind of come back as a cooler thing beyond just sports cars, which always will have that cool factor. But as far as sedans and stuff, I think you could see some of that potentially. And also we will see, I don't know how much regulations can really affect this, but we're seeing, more and more studies now suggesting that the higher the hood is, the more deadly a vehicle is with pedestrian impacts. And we're seeing that is a huge problem. It's really getting bad really fast. And, I think there could be some legislation coming down the road to force everything to a certain hood height. At least as far as SUVs goes, or crossover things, maybe once you go up to the truck class, then there will be some exclusions there. But I think that, there may be some attempts here in the future to try and lower everybody's hoods and not have these grills that are, the size of a brick wall and, try and, get things a little bit more pedestrian friendly. We will see, but I could envision that happening in the next 10 to 15 years as well. And so I think that's something that, could potentially happen, and that could also force things to be more sedan-like, even if they're not technically low-slung sedans. But I think I could see sedans coming back as a trend. Other trends, automotive-wise, I think plug-in hybrids are going to have a really big resurgence here. I think, with GM now saying they're going to switch over this week, and a lot of people just being like, there's a lot of people that, according to the studies, at least, a lot of people are really considering EVs, but it's price and it's, still just the charging situation that are the two things that freak them out. And especially if, PHEVs kind of close that price gap a little bit, and you have, no worries as far as charging infrastructure with plug-in hybrids, I think there's a lot of people that do want to go electrified, but they don't want to go all the way to an EV. They can't make that commitment for a bunch of valid reasons. And so I think, like I've said, I'm going to be a broken record here, but, I've said multiple times, I think plug-in hybrid is definitely the more sensible thing for most of Americans. And especially for where we're at right now with how things are developed and how things are perceived in the public, whether or not that is reality or everyone's reality, but it just, that is the perception is, that the charging network is bad, even though lots of people have great luck with it. I've had great luck with it, but, regardless, people have also had negative experiences, and that's valid as well. So I think, plug-in hybrids are going to be a huge trend here as we go into the later, 2020s. And the Europeans have kind of already predicted this. We're seeing, they're putting plugs in the front of the new Lamborghinis and all this kind of stuff to, have these plug-in hybrids ready so that whenever you have, these cities with no gas engines allowed for the city centers, at least to start, I think that's where these plug-in hybrids are going to really be really great. And I feel like that's going to be, I think plug-in hybrids are going to finally have their day after being wildly unpopular and uncool for so long, and so many people arguing against them. I think plug-in hybrids are going to be, a really huge thing, because it just makes too much sense, in my opinion.